Hi, and welcome to this section of the Basic Math Word Problem Tutor. And in this section, we're going to tackle word problems that involve multiplication of decimals. Okay, so if you have not already watched the section of this video on multiplication of whole numbers and the word problems with those guys, please do that now, because once you do that, this stuff is not going to be hard at all. The nice thing about it is, and in math in general, is once you understand the basic concepts, building on them isn't that hard. It's just sometimes the basic concepts aren't that well understood, and then you have problems. So this time we're going to be doing multiplication problems. It's going to be exactly the same as what we've done before. That's why I'm asking you to review that now. The only difference is now you have decimals in the problem. And a decimal doesn't make your life any harder when you're multiplying. It's not really difficult. We'll see in a second. As long as you can multiply, know your multiplication tables, you'll be fine. It's just knowing what to do with those silly decimals, and we'll show you how to do that here. So don't forget here, thinking about the big picture, multiplication is just simply a shorthand way of adding two numbers or three numbers or four numbers together. When you say have 3 books and each book is 2 pounds, okay, multiplying them together is a shorthand way of adding up the weight of each book. 2 pounds plus 2 pounds plus 2 pounds. So what we're saying there is that we have 2 pounds for each book, and we have 3 books, and multiplying them together is just a shorthand way of adding up the weights of those books individually. So don't forget that multiplication is really just a shorthand way of doing addition. So all of these problems that we're going to work are going to kind of sound like addition problems in a way. They're going to sound a little bit like addition problems because a lot of times they'll say, how much did they weigh altogether, or how tall were these people all together, or something like this. And you might think, well, they're asking me how much they weigh altogether. I must be adding something. Well, don't forget multiplication is just a shorthand way of adding. So you need to understand the problem in order to know if you really need to multiply or not. And we can talk about it all day long, but the only way to really get good at it is to read some problems and go through some examples. So let's do that right now. The first problem says, find the cost of 5 shirts if each shirt costs $10.95. So this is a great example of a simple multiplication problem, and that's why I presented it first, because it's just one sentence, okay? Not a whole paragraph. Very easy to understand, and let's take it step by step. Find the cost of 5 shirts. So I've got 5 shirts here, okay? And each shirt costs $10.95. Now that word or phrase, each shirt costs this much, that's almost a dead giveaway for multiplication, okay? Multiplication problems are a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, going to have something to the effect of, this is how much this thing cost. Now you have 6 of them. How much is the total cost? Or another variation is, an average person weighs this many pounds, okay? There are 10 people in a room. How much do they all weigh together? So you have something that kind of describes what one person or one thing is their cost, their weight, their age, whatever, and then you have 6 of them or 7 of them. And so you know how much each person weighs or whatever, and you know you have how many of them. So multiplication is how to find the total. It's a shorthand way of adding, okay? Same thing here. Find the cost of 5 shirts if each shirt costs $10.95. So instead of adding $10.95 plus $10.95 plus $10.95 plus $10.95 plus $10.95, doing it 5 times, instead of that, which is really what the problem's saying, you know you have 5 shirts, you just multiply the price times the 5 shirts you have is going to give you what you need, which is the total cost. So setting up your multiplication problem, let's put $10.95 up here, okay? And we'll put our decimal point here. And this is money, so we're going to put dollars up there, okay? And then we're going to multiply by 5 shirts, okay? We're doing a multiplication here, okay? So the decimal is just here, okay? This 5, it really doesn't have a decimal, but all numbers really have a 5.0, you could say, but we're not going to really write it down there. We're just going to put a 5 there. We're going to scoot the 5 over to the right, just like we do for all multiplication problems. So you see, it's written down the board exactly like they are for problems that do not have a decimal point. The only difference is here you have this decimal, and I'll show you how to deal with that. When you're doing your multiplication problems with decimals, I want you to forget about the fact that it's a decimal in the beginning, okay? Basically, you do your multiplication, you don't even look at the decimal point until the very end. And then when you get the final answer, I'll show you where to put your decimal point, okay? So forget about this for a second. Don't even worry about it. Let's go ahead and do our multiplication. 5 times 5 from your multiplication tables is 25. So I can't write 25 down here. You don't put two numbers down here. So I'll put a 5, carry the 2, okay, to the next column, okay? Now, we're done with that. Let's move on to the next one. 5 times 9. 9 times 5 is 45. 45 plus the 2 that I put up here is 47. So I'll put a 7 and carry the 4, okay? Put a 7 and carry the 4. Now I'm done with that one. So now I have 5 times 0 gives me 0, plus the 4 gives me a 4, okay? And I'm done with that one. And now I say 5 times 1 gives me 5, okay? So I've got all my numbers down. Now you just need to figure out where to put this decimal point. Now, it's simple, and you might think that all you have to do is take this decimal and drop it down, but for multiplication, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so now we need to figure out where to put this decimal point. Now you might be tempted to take this decimal and drop it down here, just like we've been doing for the addition problems, but that is not really the right way to do it. What you need to do is look at all of the decimals in your problem, the decimals in this number and the decimals down here, which there aren't any down here, but if there were, you would look at them, and you count how many spots are to the right of the decimal. So there's 2 spots to the right of the decimal, and so I need to keep 2 spots to the right of the decimal in the final answer, and that's what you do. Okay, so you put it down there. So the only reason I need to put it here is because in this number right here, there's 2 numbers to the right of the decimal, so I make sure there's 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. If we were multiplying by 5.3 or something, then there would be a third one here, and I would go 1, 2, 3, and I would put the decimal point here, okay? Because you need to basically put the decimal point, put the decimal point, you add up the number of decimal points in all of your numbers, and then you make sure your final decimal point is that many over there. So it looks like you just drop it down here, but it's only because the top number is the only number with any decimal points. If there are decimal points here, you have to look at those too. So the bottom line is 2 numbers after the decimal point here, so 2 numbers after the decimal point here. So you treat it just like multiplication, and then you deal with your decimal point in the end. So the answer is, all of these shirts is going to cost $54.75, and that's much easier than adding up $10.95 5 times. Okay, so you just do the multiplication there. The next problem says, a ship sails at a speed of 25.75 feet per second, and after 9 seconds, how far has the ship traveled? So let's think about this. You have to understand the problem. A ship is traveling at a certain speed of 25.75 feet per second. That means that that ship is moving along and it's going 25.75 feet every single second. So the first second goes by, 25.75 feet. Next second, another 25.75 feet. Another second goes by, another 25.75 feet. So it's going along at a pretty good speed. Every second, another 25.75 feet. Going and going and going, just like this, every second. Now it says after 9 seconds, how far has the ship traveled? So you see, you know how far it goes for each second, and you know that it's going for 9 seconds. So if you multiply these two together, it's the same general thing I've talked about with multiplication. You have, 2 books. Each book is 1 pound. You multiply them together for the final weight of everything. Here, you know you're going 25.75 feet every single second, and you also know that you're on the water for 9 seconds. So how far do you go? And you multiply them together to find out how far you go. Okay, so we're going to multiply them together. That's no secret. I've told you that. Now let me start working with the units just like I did in the other sections and show you how this makes sense from the point of view of units. So we're going 25.75 feet per second. Okay, that's what this means, feet per second. Remember, this line means per. Okay, it also means division. Okay, so if this looks foreign to you, go back and look at the sections on adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing, whole numbers. I go over this quite a bit. But this is 25.75 feet per second right here. Okay, now the other thing that I know is I'm going 9 seconds. Okay, so if I put 9 seconds up here, remember, anything on the top gets multiplied together, and anything on the bottom gets divided by. Okay, but the reason I put it there like this is because when I put seconds on the bottom and seconds on the top, they can cancel with each other and they disappear from the units, okay? So all I'm going to have left is feet. So what I'm trying to say here is by multiplying them together, you know, sometimes when you're doing these problems, you're not sure if you should multiply them or divide them or even add them sometimes. In this case, you know you're not supposed to add anything together because, or subtract, because it just doesn't make sense with the other kinds of problems we've been doing that you would add 9 seconds to 25.75 feet per second. Those are different units. You can't add them. But sometimes it's very confusing on if you should multiply them or divide them. What I'm trying to show you here is the units can tell you what to do, okay? You write your 25.75 feet per second. That is your speed, okay? And if you put your 9 seconds up there so that the seconds cancels with the seconds because one's on the top and one's on the bottom, then it will tell you that you must multiply by the 9 and you will be left with a unit of feet, okay? If you put the 9 seconds down here so that you're dividing by 9, the seconds wouldn't cancel because you can only cancel when something's on top and something's on the bottom. So division here is wrong. If you're not sure if you should divide or not, if you put 9 seconds down here, you'd know that's not going to work because in the end, you would not get feet back as an answer. You would get something else back. And the problem is asking you, how far did the ship travel? How far? So you know you should multiply. That's what I'm trying to say here. 25.75. So let's go ahead and do this multiplication. Times 9. Okay? Times 9. Seconds cancels with the seconds. I'm going to be left with a unit of feet, so I know I'm doing the right thing. So let's start multiplying. 9 times 5 is 45. Put the 5, carry the 4. Okay, next column here. 9 times 7 is 63, plus 4, starting at 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. So I'm going to have 67 here. I'll put the 7 down here, carry the 6. Again, I'm ignoring the decimal point for now. Don't touch it. Okay? Moving on to the next column. 9 times 5 is 45, plus 6, starting at 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51. Okay? So put a 1, carry the 5, okay? And then finally, 9 times 2 is 18, plus 5, starting at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So I need to put 23 down, and there's nothing else over here, so I just put the 23 down here, okay? Because there's nothing else to carry it to. So you have 23175, and you just need to figure out where to put this decimal point. Does it go here? Does it go here? And although you might be tempted to drop it down, what you need to do for multiplication is you have 1 decimal point, you have 2 numbers after the decimal point, and the whole problem, there's no decimal point down here, so you can ignore it. So in the final answer, there must be 2 decimal points to the right, or 2 numbers to the right of the decimal point. So the answer is you went 231.75 feet, okay? So we knew how fast we were going in feet per second. We know how long we have gone, and we multiply these together in order to find out how far we've traveled. And if you can't remember if you need to multiply or divide, you can always look at your units. Feet per second times seconds is going to get rid of our seconds, and we're going to be left with feet. And that's how we know to multiply. If you were trying to divide on accident and put the 9 seconds down here instead, okay, so that you would be dividing by 9, okay, then the units wouldn't work out because no units would cancel and you would not be left with a unit of feet. And that's what the problem says. It says, how far has the ship traveled? So you have to have a unit of distance in the final answer. And to be honest with you, that's why I've been stressing the units so much in this course. You know, when I learned this stuff a long time ago, I don't think I ever learned anything about units or anything like that. And so I was always confused as to if I needed to add or subtract or multiply or divide, and it just seemed, eventually I got the hang of it, but it just seemed very hard for me to understand if I need to multiply these numbers or divide them. And but it turns out the units are really, really helpful. If you could just remember what the units are and try to do things like this when you're multiplying and dividing, mainly using this kind of technique for multiplying and dividing, then you will always know, based on the units, if you're doing the right thing. So let's get some more practice with this. The next problem says you earn $6.25 per hour working at the grocery store. At the end of an 8-hour workday, how much money did you earn? So you know you earn $6.25 per hour, and you know you work for 8 hours. So just from thinking about it, you could say, well, I earn $6.25 per hour, which means every single hour I work, I earn another $6.25 per hour. Okay? So if I'm on the floor for 8 hours working, I could just multiply those two together, and that will give me the total amount of money I've earned. It's exactly true. If you can do that in your head and you know for sure that you need to multiply, just multiply those two numbers and you'll get the total amount of money that you earned. But if you're not so sure, you can always look at the units to help you figure out if you should multiply or divide these two numbers. Okay? Let me show you that. $6.25 per hour is what you make. So that's dollars per, that's what this line means, hour. So far, all I've done is I've written down what the problem says. You make $6.25 per dollar. I mean $6.25 per hour. We draw a little line there, and now we're going to try to decide if we should multiply or divide by the 8. Okay? We already know we're going to multiply by 8 hours, so let's put it there and see what happens. Okay? Because hours is on the top and hours is on the bottom, they basically cancel, and I'm left with how many dollars I've made in the day. And because 8 is on the top, it's 8 times 25. Because it's not down here, it's not divided by. So 8 times 6.25 is going to give me the total number of dollars. If I had screwed that up and put 8 hours down here instead, okay, then I would have dollars, hours, and hours. Nothing would cancel because you can only cancel when you're on the top and the bottom. Nothing would cancel, and I would not be left with a unit of dollars. I'd be left with something else. So that wouldn't give me what it's asking, which is how much money did I earn. You have to be left with the number of dollars. So this is how you know you should multiply, okay? So let's do that. 6.25 times 8, okay? This is dollars, times 8, okay? Starting over here, 8 times 5 is 40, so I put the 0, carry the 4, okay? Moving on, 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 17, 18, 19, and 20. So I've got 20, so I'll put a 0, carry the 2. And 8 times 6 is 48, and then 48 plus 2, 49, 50. So I'll put 50 here. Because I don't have any place else to carry anything, I have to put it down here, okay? And you need to look at your problem and see, well, how many decimals do I have? I only have one decimal point. I have two numbers after the decimal, so I have to have two numbers after the decimal in my final answer. So I earned $50, okay? So if I worked $6.25 per hour and I worked for 8 hours, I would earn a total of $50 for that entire day. And I know I earned that many dollars because dollars is our unit that was left over. Hours canceled with hours. Multiplying these together that way did that for us, okay? Now, let's go ahead and work a little bit different type of problem. It says a taxi driver charges a fee of $10 plus $5.25 per mile driven. Okay? So after an 11-mile trip, how much should you pay him? So this one has three numbers in it, and it might be a little confusing what to do, but it's really not because it says he charges a flat fee of $10 no matter how far he goes. So $10 is what he gets for sure. Plus, and it actually says plus $5.25 per mile driven, and you drive for 11 miles, so how much should you pay him? So looking at that second part of the problem, if you go 5.25 miles, dollars per mile, for every single mile you drive, you owe him $5.25 more cents, and you go for 11 miles, so you have how much it costs per mile, and you go for 11 miles, then you multiply those together, and you'll get the total cost for that part of it. Okay, and we'll use the units here to show you that here. So what you're going to do to pay him is you're going to owe him $10 no matter what. No matter what. Okay, plus $5.25 $5.25 per mile. So $5.25 per mile. And if you're unsure whether to be multiplying or dividing here, you'll know that you should multiply by 11 miles. Okay? Because you want to multiply the things on the top, and when you do that, miles cancels with miles, so you're left with dollars. So we want to give an answer in dollars because it says how much money do you pay him. $10 plus this thing, when we multiply it, is going to give us dollars back. That's how much we're going to owe him there. So let's just do this multiplication first, forgetting about this 10 here. we'll do the 5.25 times 11. So I just put the numbers down here. I don't line up any decimals. I don't do anything else. I just put the number down there and I'm going to do the multiplication. Starting over here, 1 times 5 gives me 5. 1 times 2 gives me 2. 1 times 5 gives me 5. Okay, now I'm done with that. I'm done with this one. And because I'm going to go over to the next one, I always have to add a 0. And now I can start multiplying by the next column. 1 times 5 gives me 5. 1 times 2 gives me 2. 1 times 5 gives me 5. Okay, notice I haven't put any decimal points anywhere in here. I told you, you never deal with the decimals when multiplying decimals until the end. So now we can add this column. 5 plus 0 gives us 5. 5 plus 2 is going to give us, starting at 5, 6, 7. Okay, 5 plus 2 again is going to give us 7, and then 5, and there's nothing here at all, so it just stays the same 5. So I've got 5, 7, 7, 5, and I need to know where to put this decimal point. So you look back at your problem. There are no decimals down here, so I don't have to mess with that. There are a decimal point 2 spots after the decimal, so there has to be a decimal point with 2 spots after the decimal in the final answer there. So this part, it cost me $57.75 just to do the driving, okay? The 11 miles of driving cost that much money, okay? But we have to add $10 to it to get the final answer because remember, he earns $10 plus so much dollars per mile. So we're going to add $10 to it, and I'm going to write it like this. Because remember, when you add decimals together, you have to line up the decimals, top and bottom. That's what you do for addition, okay? $10 is the same as 10.00, so I'm going to write it like this so that I can do this addition. 5 plus 0 gives me 5. 7 plus 0 gives me 7. And for addition, because I'm adding here, the decimal point just drops on down. Okay? 7 plus 0 gives me 7. And 5 plus 1 gives me 6. So the answer is $67.75. That's how much money you have to have. Okay? So the only thing that made this a little bit different is that he got a flat fee plus some amount of money he earned for actually driving you, and we had to figure out that we had to multiply. It was $5.25 per mile, and we drove for 11 miles, so we had to multiply these together, and your units show that with the miles canceling. When you multiply by the 11, you get dollars. We do the multiplication just like we normally do, put a 0 and go to the next column and keep going. Don't even care about decimals until the final answer, and then we count that there's 2 decimals here, we put a decimal there, so that there's 2 spots after the decimal. That was how much it cost to drive us, and then we added the $10 in, and the answer was $67.75. Okay, the next problem says you purchased 2 CDs at $11.95 each, and 3 DVDs at $14.95 each. What is the total cost of your DVDs? So here you're buying 2 things. You're buying CDs and you're buying DVDs, and you're buying different amounts of each and different prices of each. So 2 CDs at $11.95 and 3 DVDs at $14.95. And so what you need to do is find the total cost of the CDs and the total cost of the DVDs, add them together to find the total cost of everything. So because for the CDs, okay, because for the CDs they cost $11.95, okay, because they cost $11.95, and because you purchased 2 of them, if you just multiply those together, you'll find out how much money the DVDs, the CDs actually cost altogether. So let's do that. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 1 is 19. Put a 9, carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And 2 times 1 is 2. So you do that. Now, you got to figure out where to put this decimal point. You look at all of the numbers here. There's no decimals down here, so they don't really add up into anything. If there had been decimals here, you'd have to figure out how many were behind the decimal point, but there aren't. So you look up here. There's 2 numbers behind the decimal point, so there's 2 numbers behind the decimal point in the answer. So there's the CDs by themselves cost $23.90. Now the DVDs cost $14.95, and there were 3 of them. So how much money altogether is that? Okay? How much money altogether is that? So 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. Okay? 9 times 3 is 27 from your multiplication tables. And you add the 1, giving you 28. So you put an 8 and you carry a 2 up here. Okay? Now you move on to 3 times 4 is 12, plus the 2 more, starting at 12, 13, 14. So you put a 4 and you carry the 1 there. And then finally, 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So 4485, and you need to know where to put this decimal point. And there's 2 spots after the decimal point in the problem here. So you put 2 spots after the decimal point in the answer. So this is how much the CDs cost, and this is how much the DVDs cost. And then to simply find what the problem's actually asking you, which is what is the total price of everything, you just simply add them up. You line the decimal points to add them up, just like we always have, and you start in the right-hand column. 5 plus 0 gives you 5. 9 plus 8, starting at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's going to be 17, so you put a 7, carry the 1. 4 plus 3, starting at 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 7 plus 1 gives you 8. So I'll put an 8 there. And then 4 plus 2 is going to give me 6. And the decimal point for addition just drops right on down. And so the answer for everything altogether is $68.75. So, in these problems, you've got you've got the multiplication going on because you know how much costs per CD, and you're buying 2 of them, so you multiply to find the total cost of the CDs. The total cost of the DVDs was found in the same way, different price, different amount, and you just go through and you do your multiplication and you're carrying, just like we've done. And then when you finally get the 2 answers, you add dollars to dollars, giving you dollars in the final answer, like this. You plan to mail a box of 4 books to a friend. Each book weighs 5.45 pounds. The maximum weight that the box can hold is 25 pounds. Will you be able to use this box? Okay. So we know that each book, again, this is a dead giveaway for multiplication, each book weighs 5.45 pounds, and you have 4 books. So multiplying them together is going to tell us the total weight of everything, the total weight of all of those books. And then we just need to see if that's less than what this box can hold, and if so, we can use the box. So, because each book weighs 5.45 pounds, okay, and I have 4 of them, for every single book weighs 5.45 pounds, if I multiply by 4 books, I will find out how much all of them weigh together. So 5 times 4 is 20, so I'll put a 0 and I'll carry the 2. 4 times 4 gives me 16, plus 2 is 17, 18. So we put an 8, carry the 1 for 18. And then 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. 2180. Got to figure out where to put the decimal. I look up here, I see, well, this guy has 2 spots after the decimal, so there must be 2 spots after the decimal in the answer. If this had been 4.2 or something like this with another decimal point here that I was doing this multiplication, then it would be 1, 2, 3. So I'd have to have this decimal point here because I would have to have 3 spots after the decimal point and not just 2. So keep that in mind when you're multiplying by numbers on the bottom that have a decimal point. You have to take those into consideration too. You have to take those into account too when you're doing your multiplication. But here we came up with 21.8 pounds because that's how much the books actually weighed. And we know that the box can hold 25 pounds. So because the box can hold 25 pounds, yes, you can use the box. You can use the box for these books because we found out that the box can hold that much weight. So in this section, we've done problems dealing with multiplication of decimals, which are really no different than the multiplication problems we've done before. The logic is the same, and when to do multiplication and the units and all that stuff I'm teaching you is all the same. It's just that when you do the multiplication with the decimal, you kind of ignore the decimals at first. You do all of your multiplication, get your final answer, and then in order to actually know where to put that decimal point, you don't just drop it down like you do for addition subtraction. You count the number of spots to the right hand of the decimal point, including the bottom number. If there's any numbers past that decimal point, you count those too, okay? And then whatever number you get, your final answer, you put your decimal point in that spot, so you have that many spaces behind the decimal point, and you'll get the right answer. And that's how you tackle word problems involving multiplication of decimals.